Welcome back to Media Madness. I'm Rob McGreevy with the Daily Caller. Today we're going to be looking at an epic showdown between two titans of the right wing, Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. Without further ado, let's get into it.
We're talking about isolationists, the obsession with Israel. Why is Israel...
Oh, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel.
Okay, but I think a lot of people are, and like the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess, I'm hardly the one who's... I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Right.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like, there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC...
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
The idea that AIPAC is not lobbying on behalf of Israel, to me, is a little bit of a misnomer by Ted Cruz here. I do want to say, though, I think the left is kind of framing this showdown as a MAGA civil war, which I don't believe it is at all. I think really what's happening here is the right wing of American politics is vastly more ideologically diverse than the left wing is. I think conservatives are in general more open-minded about who they let into the coalition. I think the coalition that delivered President Trump a win is a lot more diverse than the left. And what we're seeing here is a battle of ideas between two people who have a very different understanding of what American conservatism is. And I think it's completely okay for us to say, hey, I have a different understanding. I have a different idea of what America should do in regards to Israel and Iran. And we're going to talk about it. And I think that's completely healthy to have a political debate. This one does get a little testy. There are some insults lobbed back and forth, but I don't think there's a inherent call for a MAGA civil war just because these two very intelligent people, are having a disagreement. So let's keep going here.
When was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. Do you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC?
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets...
No, I'm not going to do a simple...
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government. And I don't... It's not.
No.
It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with the foreign government.
It wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
Okay, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
it's not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure. Like if...
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. They're not Israelis.
Hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah, and why
aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
They're not a foreign lobby.
No, they're not.
AIPAC is not registered as a foreign lobby, and I do think that they should have to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, because despite Senator Cruz insisting that they are not really lobbying on behalf of Israel, they really are. And, you know, there are many Americans in AIPAC. There are also many American-Israeli dual citizens. There's also non-Jews. There are Christian Zionists. There are people who support the project of Israel and want to promote good relations between the two countries. There's nothing wrong with that, but they do have in mind they want to advance the goals of both nations, of America and Israel, but that is essentially a project to advance the desires of a foreign nation, and they should probably have to register, which I think is a fair point for Tucker to kind of push back on. Let's keep going.
And this is that there's a fever swamp. Look,
It's not a fever swamp. These are very reasonable questions, and you've accused me of being obsessed with Israel, which I'm not.
I actually haven't. I've said
And of being
isolationist
feverish about it, which I'm not at all. I find it's a very tender spot when you ask it, and I don't know why.
So, Tucker, all right, let's go back. I was first elected to the Senate in 2012. I came in Obama's second term. And I actually saw AIPAC be badly wounded in a way they never came back from. And the second term is when Obama did the Iran nuclear deal. And the Iran nuclear deal, I think, was catastrophic. And AIPAC went all in lobbying against it.
Yeah.
And they failed. And I was the leading opponent of the Iran nuclear
Oh, I know. They definitely failed, yes.
They failed. And what happened, the Obama White House told every Democrat, when I got here, there used to be real bipartisan support for Israel. That has largely disappeared. And it's the Obama nuclear deal that caused it, because the Obama White House told every Democrat, pick. You either stand with Israel or you're a Democrat and you stand with the Obama White House. And almost every single Democrat member of Congress said, I'm a Democrat first, to hell with Israel. And then I watched as AIPAC, every one of those Democrats got reelected and AIPAC did nothing about it. And it dramatically reduced AIPAC's influence.
I agree. I watched it happen.
And by the way, I told AIPAC, I said, look, the analogy, if the NRA...
To be fair, I don't know how right Ted Cruz is about Israel actually no longer being a bipartisan issue. Richie Torres, John Fetterman, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, most of the strongest, most powerful voices in the Democratic Party, sans the far left wing, the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, the Rashida Tlaibs of the world, are pretty pro-Israel.
Was supporting a bunch of politicians and cared about the Second Amendment. And you had politicians that vote to confiscate people's guns. And the NRA turned around and raised money for the people who voted to confiscate guns. You know what? No one would ever care what they said again.
So you're making the case that AIPAC is not as powerful as people say it is, and I completely agree with you. I've watched that, and I'm not making the case that AIPAC is all powerful and they're running everything and putting fluoride in the water. I'm not making that case at all, because that's not true. I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country, and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. They talk with them. I don't know what they do. I can tell you.
But why don't you care? Isn't it meaningful if a foreign government...
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk with foreign countries all the time.
But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it. It's really simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working for Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of its government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know.
Okay.
So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, they're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
That is not only not true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government?
Do you know how AIPAC raises money?
What?
For elected officials, like what they do, like what the actual mechanics is?
I mean, they go to people who are sympathetic to Israel and raise money and then send it to candidates who agree with them.
So what they'll do is, in my last election, AIPAC endorsed me. And they'll host a fundraiser. And they'll host a fundraiser in Dallas or Houston or Atlanta or New York or LA. And they'll do a fundraiser and they'll get someone who will host it. And it's usually a business owner, lawyer, doctor, or someone who hosts it. And you'll get typically at an AIPAC fundraiser, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 people who live in that city.
Right.
Who care about a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. Yeah. And if they have, 50 people, each of them writes a $1,000 check. And you raise $50,000.
Yeah, I've been to an AIPAC fundraiser. Okay. I know what it looks like.
But that is not. And by the way, there's no representative of the Israeli government there. You have, when you're in Dallas, you're meeting with...
This is such a false and silly conversation. I know all this. The question is are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government to any extent?
Okay,
That's a really
different
simple
from
question.
lobbying on behalf of.
It's a simple question. Are
it really that
AIPAC's
different?
goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government? And I'm just going to ask you a question straightforwardly. And if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Okay, are they shaped by?
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking
to
with them?
represent
Yes.
the
Is
Israeli
Israel
government?
directing them? You want to talk about FARA? The law on lobbying on behalf of someone.
Yeah.
It is, I hire you and you lobby on behalf of me. I direct you. Does Israel direct AIPAC? No, they are not lobbying on behalf of them. Or do they care about them? Yes, but...
Or do you think that, it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody, I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries...
It's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that. And I have
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but on my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews.
We could go on forever for this 2-hour interview, which obviously got very spicy. Just a couple things here. I think the idea that criticizing a foreign government, Israel, is tantamount to criticizing the religion that is the most dominant in that country. Even though Israel is a Jewish state, is an explicitly Jewish state, it is also a multi-ethnic democracy, and criticizing it is not criticizing the Jews. And I don't think it's entirely fair to say that Tucker's criticizing the Jews because he's criticizing Israel. And also, Senator Cruz, I don't think he's... Earlier in the interview, he kind of makes some good points about Iran and not allowing them to have a nuclear bomb, and that's fine. I don't think he's being entirely honest about FARA, about AIPAC, about their goals and aims, which is fine. I mean, I don't think he's lying either. I think he's coming at it from a perspective of he wants his position. These are two master debaters, and Ted Cruz wants his position to be the dominant one. He wants to win the battle of ideas, and at least for me, he didn't. I'd be curious to know what you guys think about this exchange. Who got the better of who? If you watched the whole interview, let us know in the comments what you thought. Who came out on top? And if you support what we're doing, if you like what we're doing, please like this on YouTube, subscribe, share it with your friends, repost on Twitter. We'll see you next time.